Hi, this is Janet Swanson. I am here today to encourage you, inspire you, and cheer you on, and to let you know you deserve to be happy, to be healed, and to live your life in freedom. Free from the pain of your past, free from fear, free from all those voices that tell you, I can't. So, let's break the silence and expose the darkness that has held you in confinement way too long. Your life matters. Your story matters. Your voice matters. I believe in you. And most of all, God believes in you. Welcome to One Voice Makes a Difference podcast. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to One Voice Makes a Difference podcast. Here we are with Brianne, Back to Life, Part 2. Wow, what a story she told us. We ended off last week with encouraging people. If you've been tempted with suicide or you've been thinking about it, listen, you need to tell somebody. You do not need to follow through with that. And Brianne gave us her testimony, and so powerful. We're so glad that you didn't do it and you're here. Praise the Lord.
Thank you, Jesus. Yes.
You know, Brianne, I was thinking about your life and your testimony, how many people you are going to impact with your story. You already have so many people. But healing is a journey, isn't it? It's something that you have to lean into, and it just doesn't happen. You have to want to be healed.
Oh, yeah.
But I believe it's possible. What do you think?
It is possible. It is a journey, but
Yeah, it is possible.
Yeah.
And the way that the Lord heals us is by peeling the layers back, layer by layer. And then he finally gets to that root and he heals us. There's a saying in my book that your past is not your past until you're healed from it.
Yes.
And what happens when you have childhood trauma, a lot of times you bring the wounds from your past into your present, which dictates your future.
Yeah.
And that's where Jesus comes in, though, where he says, you know what? I'm going to go into your past. I'm going to heal you of your past.
Yes.
I'm going to be in your present and dictate your future. Jeremiah 29 says, I know the plans that I have for you.
Yes, ma'am.
And they're good, and to give you a good future and to give you a hope.
Yes.
So that's what's powerful. You know, there was other things, Brianne, that you went through. As we said, that childhood trauma manifests in so many different ways. And one of your ways is you needed validation and you were looking for love in all the wrong places.
Oh, yeah.
Tell us a little bit about your teenage years and what happened to you even after you got saved and just the whole journey.
Yes. Well, basically, after the suicide attempt happened, I felt like there was definitely a God, and I was living with a foster family. I wasn't necessarily happy with where I was living, but there was definitely something to this God I got to see on a Sunday morning, and then we would go home, and there was something special and different about this family, but I was still living in the world. So here I am, I'm saved, but I'm still living this life of rebellion and you're not my parents type thing. So this led me to go back into foster care. I was living with that family. They end up giving up on me. I get mixed around. I'm in the hospital. I was actually kidney failure. So that's a whole story in itself. You know, the doctors and the nurses ended up keeping me in the hospital for 3 weeks so I could attend a court date so I didn't have to go to another shelter in the meantime. And
how old were you?
I was 17 at the time. So this is a lot of big things are happening. I'm missing school. Where are my parents? I'm searching for everything, feeling so low. But God still had his hand on me. And the next thing I knew, I was living with a family, and it just didn't work out. And I had turned 18 a few months later. And they went to the school and said, we can't have you anymore. So I got pulled out of class and they told me, you're homeless. And you have two choices. You can sign yourself out of the foster care system, or you can go to a shelter and we'll call you a cab. And of course, I'm 18 and I'm like, I'm not going back into foster care. I'm not going back into a shelter. I would rather be homeless. So here I'm homeless, and then I'm sitting in the guidance counselor's office like, okay, where am I going to sleep?
Wow.
And that night I slept behind a church. And I remember this little old lady saying that I could come and stay at her house. So I did one night. I have no idea who she was, but it was a love that she fed me. It was God's grace. It really was. And then next thing you know, I'm back sleeping on friends' couches, and then a man decides to pop up into my Facebook at the time. And of course, I'm so hungry for love and needing it. God's the furthest thing from my mind right now. I'm going on dates with him, and then next thing you know, we're fornicating. And the kicker was that this man was a pastor. He was the youth pastor, and there was a lot that went into it. It was this pool of, we knew what we were doing was wrong, but then he was the pastor, and he would tell me I had purpose and show God's love to me, but then at the same time we were doing these wrong things. So it was a very big confusion thing for me.
I bet.
And then this man was 5 years older than me, so he would kind of play a little bit of games with me. He had options. So then I was like, oh, if you have options, then I have options too. When you're not going to pay attention to me, I'm going to go with this other man, a high school ex. And then of course I was fornicating with both of them, and then next thing you know, I end up pregnant. I don't know who's the father. It was around the same time frame, and I was signed up to go to the Marines because, when you're homeless, you need to make sure you have a bed and food to eat. So that was my plan, and you can't go when you're pregnant. So it was so much at once, and I went to my Marine recruiters, and I was told that the one female recruiter, that she had had an abortion, and that it was easy, that it could be something as simple as just a pill. It was not something that was just as simple as a pill. It was the full abortion, no being put to sleep. It was rough. It was hard. And that's where my testimony led to. I made that decision, and we arrive in Pittsburgh, and we are surrounded by protesters. And I mean, it's like right on the sidewalk of these protesters, and they're not across the street, they're right there. So you're walking, and I see this woman in front of me, and she there's a protester that reaches out to her, and this black woman, she rips her hand away. And she did not want to be stopped at all. She was on a mission. But this woman, after that woman in front of me did that, she looked over at me and made eye contact, and it was one of those I know what I'm doing is wrong. I should not be doing this. And you go inside, and it's all day. It's an 8-hour experience. It was $251. I only had $250. The woman behind the counter gave me $1, and I always think what if she never gave me that $1? But this is what was happening, and it happened, and there was a piece of me that broke. It was definitely a soul-crushing experience, and then you just walk out of there like nothing happened. But that same protester was right there on the street, on the sidewalk. Is she was waiting for me that whole day. And when I walked beside her, she grabbed my arm and said, God still loves you. And
how did that make you feel?
Almost scared at a moment, what I just did, almost disbelief.
Yeah. But
also that there really is redemption in Christ, and that he loves you even in your ugly, and he will show up, and he's not going to leave you there. And my favorite verse in the Bible is Psalms 40 verse 2, that he pulls you out of the pit and sets you on a rock to stand firm. And I love that verse, and that verse is literally my life of just chaos, sex, drugs, and just, validation and searching for idols, anything above God. And then here I am, I just had an abortion, and I experienced God's love extremely right afterwards. And it was that night I went to a party, And I was so sore that I sat on the couch. Nobody knew. This is another thing. I kept everything a secret. My recruiters knew. One of the men that I was sleeping with knew, and he was not on board. Manipulation. I had to get a PFA on him. It was a lot of abuse, not healthy situation. So I just bottled everything up. My recruiter was the only one that knew. So I sat on that couch that night at the party, and I'm so sore and just looking around. I'm like, why am I here? This isn't even the life I want. Like, God is real, and I'm just like, God, take it and take it all away. And in the midst of seeing people like jumping up and down and like dancing, here I am. I feel like I had been saved at 17, or absolutely like confessed it with my lips, but I feel like that was the moment that God really intervened in my life, and that was the huge turning point where I'm like, I'm different now. Yes, absolutely. People started noticing the change. My language talked, the way I carried myself changed, and not everything went perfect, but it was the cultural shift that I needed in my life, and I was like, okay, this is happening. Although the family never knew, the next day I moved in with a very Christian family. And that year of my life was like a healing of my childhood. The youth pastor, actually went back to school in Missouri. So here I am in Pennsylvania with his family, and it was like I was loved on. And I really believe that I would have never had that if I had not been dating that man. God needed a man at the time. He used a man because that's all I was searching for, to really show me his love.
So I believe that God can take the worst times of your life and turn it around for your good. And Brianne, as I'm listening to your testimony, it was right after the abortion that woman was standing out there, and she said, hey, God loves you still. Yep. Even though you did that, I want you to know he has not changed his mind about you. And when you got to that party and you sat there, you were broken. Oh, yeah. And what people don't tell you when you go to get an abortion is the pain that you feel afterwards. And the pain that you carry into your future from that. They don't want to tell, the devil ain't going to tell you the consequences of the sin or the consequences of what he's leading you into. He just wants to show you the answer or a quick remedy, for something that, was not necessarily what God wanted, But the enemy's always, trying to show you for the shortcut out. And God says, hey, I will make a way out for you. But even in our own mess ups, when we do mess up, God still loves us. And I love what you said, that you were sitting there and you were like, what am I doing here? And it reminds me of the story of Elijah. And Elijah had just had a great victory on Mount Carmel. I mean, he prayed fire down. I mean, God showed out big time. But one word from Jezebel, he went running and he wished to die, and then the Lord just kept showing up to him and feeding him and kept ministering to him and just kept showing love to him. And then when he got in the cave, he said, Elijah, what are you doing here? And I believe what you heard, that voice that says, hey, what are you doing here? That was God. I can't tell you how many people have given their hearts to the Lord at a bar or in a drunken stupor. And when they see other people acting crazy and the Lord comes to them and says, hey, what are you doing here? And you said, I don't want this life. No. So something happens when you decide, I don't want that anymore. And when you are abused as a child, a lot of times you don't know what you want. All you know is what you've always had. Therefore, it's familiar to you. But God used this abortion to break you into his arms so that he could heal you. And I just think that's amazing to me. I have a couple questions for you, Brianne. Maybe there's someone listening to this podcast and they're finding themselves in a predicament. And let's just say they're a Christian.
Yeah.
You know, because if you're listening to this podcast, you probably are a Christian, but not every Christian is always doing the right thing.
Yeah.
There's some out there fornicating. There's some out there getting drunk and drinking and doing whatever, and then they find themselves being tempted to have an affair, you know, and they're Christians. They're serving God, but the devil don't care if you're a Christian or not. He's going to tempt you. I think even more the children of God that he is taunting and torturing and trying to get them to fail than he is anybody, you know, because he wants you. He wants to torture you. And so maybe someone is listening to this and they're finding themselves in a predicament and they're thinking about getting an abortion. What would you say to them right now?
I would say to you that it doesn't stop whenever you go to that abortion clinic, that this feeling inside of you of like, oh, I can fix this if I just go and get the abortion. That there are wounds that need to be healed and that there is redemption that can happen. But that life inside of you, if I could just tell you how beautiful my child's smile is and seeing her dance and sing and all these different things that you will miss out on, and that the Lord still, even in your sin, can bless you with a beautiful child, and ending their life will not end your pain and end the situation that you're in right now. So if I could tell you anything, if I could save you from years, it's been 10 years. If I could save you from the trauma and the hurt that my heart still feels right now, I would do anything. And I would just want to tell you that I love you. And as a Christian, we can all say that. And that the Lord is not done with you. And this baby is a blessing. And do not listen to the world who says that, oh, you know, it's just a clump of cells. It is not. It's a baby with a beating heart. And the Lord has plans for you and that baby. So,
awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. So what happened after that? You were sitting there in a party, and basically you're like, I don't want this. So what happened after that?
Literally, the man I was dating at the time, his family had just asked me to come live with them. They know nothing of what's going on. I was very secretive at the time. And the next day, March 18th, I have the abortion. March 19th, I'm moving in with them. And the Lord's timing is so amazing to me. So March 19th, I'm moving in, and I'm over here just surrounding in this new Christian culture and just being loved on and just overwhelmed. And my life completely changed from that point. I still was fornicating with the man who was a pastor, which was the family's son. So I was still living in sin, but things were changing. And I remember, you know, the Lord was really stirring in my heart. And I'm a new babe in the Lord. And we would be worshiping, and I would feel like, you know, we have to stop having sex. And I would go to this man, and he would laugh in my face during worship. And then he would get up there and preach. And I honestly started almost resenting the Lord for a little bit, like, what is going on here? This is not real Christianity, because I wanted something that was so far and different from my life that I was willing to get deep into the legalism of Christianity and religion. And that was, it was tough. And then I remember about a year later, we're still dating, still fornicating, still all these things are happening. But I'm really seeing what a true family is and love is. But I prayed, if this man is not my husband, take him out of my life. And that weekend, the Lord, like, he broke up with me. And that was on vacation in Missouri. So I had to ride back 14 hours with his father in a car. And if that will wake you up, it really will. And previously I had mentioned that I was supposed to go into the Marines. Since I did not go into the Marines, I did have to pick another branch. So I ended up signing myself up for the Air Force as quick as possible. And I was, you know, so done. And thankfully they picked me up and I was ready to go. And one night I'm sitting here like watching some YouTube videos, and that's how I found my husband. And you know, it's amazing how the Lord like really ordered my steps. And of course, like I get into the Air Force. I'm skipping some steps here, but the main thing was my abortion story goes into the Air Force. I'm, you know, dealing with some coworkers and some friends, and one of the girls finds out that she's pregnant. And she had already had an abortion before, but she was scheduled to have an abortion on Mother's Day weekend. And oh my gosh, it was like, I know when I had the abortion, I slept for months and months and months. I wasn't doing drugs, I wasn't in alcohol, but I was trying to cope and just stuff it as much as possible. But my healing kind of changed when I went into the Air Force, and I see this girl and she's struggling and she's planning, and my other coworker is planning to take her. Like I went into prayer, like serious prayer, and like texting her all the time. I ended up texting the girl on her birthday, and she's like, "You were like my angel." And I never, like, I wasn't really, still such a babe in the Lord. Like I was like, this is my first experience that prayer really worked. And she decided to have that baby, and he's 7 now, and he's such a beautiful little boy.
Wow.
She's had another baby. She's married now, and I'm just like, you know, the Lord really worked through that experience, and it showed me that God really isn't done with people, and that he can use your hard moments in your life and turn it around for good. And I always think like, yeah, that's why. Like, I don't believe that God ever wanted me to have that abortion, but I do know that that abortion happened, and now a little boy lives because I was able to pray for this girl.
Wow.
So, yeah.
Such a great example of your voice making a difference
Absolutely.
in somebody else's life. And to me, it's a beautiful picture of how God takes the ashes of our life and makes something beautiful out of it, and where you can be open with people. You're not hiding it anymore.
Yes.
And you can say, listen, I've walked down that road. I promise you don't want to go down that road. And if you could be that voice speaking into somebody's life to say, hey, hang on, things will get better.
Sure.
This is not your answer. That's what you're doing. And you're giving a lot of hope to a lot of people right now.
Absolutely. And I would say to anyone who has had an abortion to use your voice also.
That's right.
And, you know, share with others, because I can't tell you how many people, when I just talk about my story, they say, I've been sitting in the church pew for 20 years and I've never told anybody. And I held on to it for 3 years. I can't imagine holding on to it for 20. And I finally said, I didn't even tell my husband until I told this girl. It was such this big secret inside of me.
Shame.
Yes. But once I said it, it was like, the Lord can now heal it, and it's brought into the light. Satan can't use it as a foothold anymore, because anything in secret is in shame.
That's right.
So God is good, and just use your voice, say something, talk to people, and you never know who your testimony will really help.
That is so true. Listen, you guys, your voice is making a big difference in people's lives, so we need to tell people what we've been through. The Word says in Revelation 12 that we overcome by the blood of the Lamb and the word of our testimony. Now, we can't love our lives even to the point of death. So, you know, you got to get out of the way. Your pride's got to get out of the way. Insecurity's got to get out of the way. And the Lord, you know, he's asking people, hey, can I use you?
Yeah.
Can I use your story? Because, you know, I was there. I've been with you the whole time. And the one thing that's really coming to my mind right now, Brianne, is that the Lord is so proud of you.
Oh, thank you.
And, you know, on the day that you were born, his eyes were on you because he made you. He knitted you together. You were not a mistake. And he loves you with an everlasting love. And now I want you to know that his eyes are still on you.
Thank you.
And that I believe that your voice is going to impact so many other people, because you're bringing all this stuff out of the darkness, you know, and you're shedding light to shameful things. And the Lord's going to reward that.
Thank you.
He is going to reward that. And so tell me, you said you joined the Air Force and then you met your husband. What?
Yeah.
Was he in the Air Force too, or was he on YouTube?
Yeah. So my husband made YouTube videos about being in the Air Force. So basically like what you need to expect, what to do, tips, things. And literally that night that I watched him, I watched every single video of his, and I said, that is my husband. I commented, I was like, I'm going to marry you one day, and I did.
Oh my gosh, I love it.
I was the stalker, but it's okay.
Oh my gosh,
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah.
Oh, so you've been married how long now?
7.5 years. So this year has been our best year yet. Yeah,
and
I
you
love
have
that
two
man.
children.
Yes.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, I just appreciate you so much telling us your story, and especially about abortion, because now we're in the middle of a big election, and a lot of people are just like, hey, let's just kill the babies, and not even bring recognition to it, where we're pro-life all the way. God is pro-life, Jesus is pro-life, the Holy Spirit.
Yeah.
So the church should be too. So we want to encourage you, everybody has a choice. God gave Adam and Eve a choice in the Garden of Eden. He gave them a choice, and it led down a life of regret. So I want to encourage you, choose today, life.
Yes.
And the Lord, even if, like Brianne said, even if you did have an abortion, there is no condemnation. There is no shame. Right after this happened to Brianne, the Lord came to her through this woman and said, hey, I still love you. But if we can impact you now to make a decision to say, hey, let's be for life and preserve this life and pro-life, then let's do that. Let's use our voice to really make a difference in people's lives. Next week, you guys, we're going to hear from Brianne's husband, and we're going to talk about some real struggles that, your husband walked with you, and some of the fears that you had when you went into this marriage. And we're going to talk a lot about abandonment and healing and where you are now to this point, and also where you're going. It's not about just where you are now, but it's where you're going. So thank you so much for sharing your story with us. It's been a great encouragement. You guys, I hope you tune in next week with Brianne at One Voice Makes a Difference podcast. Hey, I hope you have a great week. Love you. Bye.
Thank you for listening to One Voice Makes a Difference. If you enjoyed today's episode, please consider subscribing and reviewing the show on iTunes or wherever you listen to podcasts. Tell your friends about One Voice too. Your voice helps the show reach more people to spread the gospel. Together, with all of our voices, we can come out of the darkness and into the light. If you'd like to hear more about Janet's personal story, you can purchase her book, One Voice, on her website, janetswanson.org. You can also connect with her on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, or YouTube. Most importantly, if you are in crisis, please call the 24/7 crisis hotline at 1-800-273-8255 or visit suicidepreventionlifeline.org. Don't wait. Your life matters.